those who don't know, the Free State Project is a movement of voluntary human action where we are trying to concentrate libertarians in the state of New Hampshire.
I think we've done more in the last decade than every other libertarian movement combined has accomplished in the last 5 decades.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, libertarians, anarchists, movers, natives, and those on your way, thanks for tuning in to Season 2, Episode 8 of Free State Live, where you get to hear about all the ways you can live free and thrive in the free state of New Hampshire. And first and foremost, time to welcome back our lovable gang, that cast of characters you've known to grow and love. We've got Kevin from the internet, our meme smith galore, and I guess our new fan of Cameo recipient. I mean, you got some trolls going on for you now?
Absolutely, and it has been entertaining my evening.
Yeah, well, the trolling will continue until liberty improves, and if that's a viable path forward, I'm all in behind it. And speaking of trolls, we have New Hampshire's favorite propagandist, Tall Bill. How are you, Bill?
Happy Free State New Year, guys.
Yes, it is Free State New Year's. You know, it's my favorite holiday because it's the day we get to celebrate everything coming to an end. We actually had Dennis kind of preempting us in the chat over there. I'm exhausted with all this election business. It's so hard, lots of emotions. But Dennis, one more day. In fact, only about 23 and a half hours till the polls close tomorrow night. And then we get to call it a wrap and celebrate the victories, mourn the losses, move forward to the next priorities, working on liberty activism that makes a difference with our legislative allies who are getting in there, and talk about Free State New Year's, what we can expect, what we're doing, what we're moving forward, what we have to look forward to next year, and maybe our expectations coming out of this. We have New Hampshire native, activist, and veteran, Derek Proulx. Derek, thanks for joining us tonight. How are you?
Doing great. How's everyone doing?
As good as it can be. As I think Dennis did hit the nail on the head. It's been a lot of burnout this year coming in. But before we dive into talking about the election, as always, guys, we have to remember that the Free State Project is a 501c3 charitable nonprofit that does not specifically endorse or support any political party, any political candidate, or any political initiatives. Any information presented in this episode is for educational purposes. And while the views of your hosts and our guests may reflect community sentiment, they don't reflect implicitly the views of the organization. Again, as a nonprofit, we stay out of these things, but as members of the community, we might have some opinions or two. Derek, you've been all over the place. You've been helping Republicans, helping libertarians, campaigning across the state, pushing for bipartisan legislation coming up this year, lobbying co-sponsors. Like, you're doing all the work that everyone forgets is like goes into getting legislation passed, but before the people you need to do it have even been elected. Like, why?
Be careful when you use the word pushing, dude. It's a hot topic in New Hampshire right now. So.
Yeah. What gets you like so motivated to do this stuff? And like the bills you're working on aside, just like getting involved to the level you've gotten involved, like what pushes you to do that?
I think it's like, a lot of times I think I don't really have a right to complain about anything unless I'm willing to put in the work to solve it. Of course, you know, if you can't solve it at a certain point, then I mean, like, I guess you can still complain about it. But for the most part, it's like, all right, we got a job to do. I don't think, you know, the country's going in the right direction. You know, government's going in the right direction. So I'm going to put in the work to fix it myself. And that kind of is what gives me the motivation to go out there and to talk to Democrats and Republicans and libertarians and try to get everyone to work together to maybe do things that I think would work better. I don't know.
And why not run for office yourself? Why not take that step instead? You've just been helping other people run for office and doing a lot of behind the work scenes. Like, what made you want to choose that path instead of going out there and getting yourself elected?
I'm, you know, pretty young. I'm pretty new to everything. I was part of the Trump campaign in 2016 and in 2020, although I ended up voting for Jorgensen in 2020, and then got involved with the whole Free State movement in 2021, January 2021. So like, I'm just getting started, trying to get my feet steady, figure out everything, how the whole process works, make some connections. Obviously, I've found my family with the whole Free State movement. there's not a more inspiring group of people than Free Staters, and I love every single one of them, no matter how much we bicker and argue about strategy. But yeah, I do plan on running for state rep in 2024, so that is on the table. But yeah, I'm learning and I'm networking, and yeah, I'm motivated. Let's do this thing.
Yeah, well, I'd vote.
You
for
got some support, Derek.
Hell yeah!
You got some support, some organic grassroots support there. I'm seeing.
So I mean, I guess another question here is like, oddly enough, I think I'm the only non-native on the show right now. Shout out there.
Oh wow, that is interesting.
Yeah,
that's pretty rare.
And again, I'm not somebody who moved to New Hampshire for the Free State Project. Again, somebody who moved here for unrelated related reasons, not from the Free State Project, the more political reasons, and ended up finding Free Staters to be great neighbors and finding a community in them. It's weird that we end up having a show of entirely nobody who moved for the Free State Project promoting the Free State Project. But like, what was your path here? You said you worked for Trump. You got politically involved at a young age. You're a veteran. You're in the New Hampshire National Guard. No more because of some issues and the past dystopia we've had, as I understand. But like, what was your path to like liberty? Like, how did you find this community and like find your place in it? Normally I ask somebody what made you move, but instead, like, what made you stay?
Yeah, I mean, like, I grew up in a pretty conservative household. Everyone in New Hampshire grows up like having live free or die like drilled into their brain. It's everywhere on all the license plates and the highway signs and everything like that. So you always had that in the back of your head. And then I'm also like a history buff too, so I like reading some old theory of like liberty, like John Locke and stuff like that. And so like I already kind of had a basis of being open to liberty. Joined the New Hampshire Army National Guard, trying to serve my country, fight the bad guys and do my duty for my country, patriotism and that kind of thing. And then through 2020 with all the COVID mandate stuff, I started like really questioning like party loyalty and stuff like that, because even a lot of like the Republicans were pushing a lot of the COVID lockdowns, and of course Operation Warp Speed was a product of the Trump administration, and so that kind of got the gears turning at things might not be how they seem. And then when we were on a training mission, I was sitting in my my HIMARS. I was part of a HIMARS unit, and we were waiting for a fire mission to come down. I'm just scrolling through my phone, and I see a news article about Airman Daniel Hale, who was arrested for leaking that 90% of drone strikes in the Middle East were on innocent civilians. And I was like, whoa, what is going on here? And so that made me start digging deep into the wars themselves. Were they justified? What were the things that we were doing over there, the lies that were told that brought us into the wars? And then, of course, just everything getting worse through 2020 with the lockdowns. And I got to the point where I was like, I need to find like a new political home or something like that. And I just like started searching, and that brought me to the Libertarian Party Mises Caucus, which then brought me into the Free State movement. And once I got plugged into the Free State movement, like I said, I found my family.
Yeah, I had a oddly similar, path, I guess, because I grew up here too. I had really not much idea about this, and then the Mises Caucus has done a really good job with the outreach. I don't know where they're getting all their leads. I mean, I guess I like joined a Facebook group. So like that's probably worth it if you're out there and you're wondering where all the liberty people are. Look up, like it's probably easier during vaccine mandates or something, or lockdowns. Look up like anti-lockdown or like this is crazy, and then you'll find people who are saying that this is crazy. But that's that really was the exact same route that I found here. It's interesting, right? Because the Free State Project seems like the most potent form of all of this. It's like there's the Libertarian Party, or there's the Mises Caucus, which is maybe like a little bit more, I guess, they're going to be more direct than the Libertarian Party previously was or whatever. But all of that is ultimately like, what are you going to try to convince a nation of people to change their minds on how they should live their lives or how like their whole system of government should work? It's like most people aren't going to be convinced. So the idea that you could just get people to gather together if they share those beliefs, you know, it's just like such a simpler, it's an easier sell than like, you should totally think about how you live your life. No. Just think about where you live your life and how much better it would be.
Yeah. Now, to push back to the topic, though, I mean, Kurt asked earlier, isn't Porcupine Day February 3rd? I didn't say Porcupine Day, Kurt. I said Free State New Year's. And I'm saying New Year's. This is a joke. It's not an actual holiday. But, you know, Election Day. All of the hard work and activism and all these elections, all this door knocking finally coming to a close, as Dennis mentioned, the burnout there. And like, it's really a night of anticipation. Like, I don't know anybody who's sleeping soundly tonight who's done any amount of work over the last 6 months. Everyone's up with anticipation, antsy, getting ready for those last minute phone calls in the morning, the sine waves to get out the vote. Derek, like, you're a native. You grew up in this New Hampshire political climate, and it is a political climate. I've lived all over the country, and nowhere are people as politically involved year round as in New Hampshire. But like, you've also been out door knocking and sign waving and campaigning for candidates in different parties, not on a partisan nature, just people promoting liberty. What's been your feel of people like natives like you, people outside of the Free State Project community you've been interacting with, and like, where do you think this election is heading tomorrow? Like, what are your feelings?
I definitely think it's going to be a red wave. I'm also in like, you know, Rockingham County, which is like really heavily Republican anyways. But definitely, I think it's going to be a lot of Republicans across the board. Federal races is going to be, you know, tight in all three of the federal elections. Of course, you know, the governor race, Sununu, he kind of pulls votes from both parties anyway, so he's a solid lock-in for that race. But I think we're definitely going to have a lot more Free Staters elected. I think what we saw from like the primary season was that Democrats were just throwing the name Free Stater out really irresponsibly
at their own.
Free advertising. Yeah,
free
advertising.
At their own, and even at like natives and everything like that. And so a lot of natives are now like, okay, I'm being accused of being this Free Stater thing. What is this? Let me look into it. They start looking into it and they're like, okay, this is me. I guess I'm a Free Stater. Yeah, the left who hates me anyways has accused me of being this thing that I see as good. Might as well just own it.
Right.
Well, I mean, so Mark made his prediction in the chat. He thinks 32 Free Staters will be elected to the New Hampshire legislature tomorrow. And
are we allowed to bet on that?
I mean, we can bet on it, but I think we need to first like define what a Free Stater is. Are you talking somebody who signed the pledge? Are you talking somebody who moved for the Free State Project? Or are you taking like Jeremy Kaufman's new broad scope definition of anybody who identifies with the values of liberty in New Hampshire and working towards making the state more free? In which case, I mean, heck, I think there's like over 100 state reps that got over a B+ or an A- rating on the NHLA scorecard for having libertarian voting records. By that definition, you can see over 100 Free Staters elected tomorrow.
Yeah. That doesn't make that's definitely gonna happen.
I was I was invited by Dennis Pratt to this what he called was the Liberty Creators Summit or something like that. And he just had a whole bunch of people that had different ideas for the Free State. And of course, Jeremy was there for this event. And this was the first time that I heard Jeremy say, like, we need to, number one, start being proud of the Free State name. And we also need to start like extending that title to anyone who just wants to make New Hampshire a freer place. You know, that's part of the whole marketing thing. And that's the definition that I tend to agree with, is that you're a Free Stater if you just want New Hampshire to be freer. And we should be proud of that.
Sure.
I'm a native.
I think the standard is slightly higher than that. I think the standard is you're a Free Stater if you want New Hampshire to be the freest state.
Yeah.
So like if you're a Texas guy who wants New Hampshire to be freer, it's like, you're not a Free Stater. I don't care. You know what I'm saying? Like you don't count. You
could be. There's a few of them that listen. There's nothing to say that somebody in Texas can't want Texas to be freer and still be planning their move to the even freer state of New Hampshire.
Well, but I guess my point is, if you want New Hampshire to be the freest state, you're a free stater. If you want Texas to be the freest state, you're a Texas.
Right.
You're a
whatever.
Texas
Yeah,
national.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Listen,
That's fine. They can have that.
You're
I
an
fully
idiot.
support Texas independence and California independence and New Hampshire independence.
Yeah.
Across the board.
If they want it.
Right. And their definition of freedom might be different than our definition of freedom. And I mean, hey, we bicker enough among our own about how we define freedom here. So good luck in a state as big as Texas.
Hey, we have a great question in the chat, which is how many 100 out of how many state reps? I believe it's like 440 or something, or 430. What is it?
It's 400. So there are 400 state reps in the state of New Hampshire and 24 state senators. Now, we've had a bunch of free staters over the years elected as both Republicans and Democrats. In the past, we've had libertarians elected as well in the New Hampshire State House to fill out that 400. The state Senate is a little bit different of a ballgame where they're only 24. They're big money elections. People spend a lot of money. And we've had liberty-friendly state senators before, but I think this might be the first year we get an actual free stater as a state senator here in New Hampshire, someone who's moved for the Free State Project. And Mark's definition of pure mover, not just a liberty senator, but like somebody who's known to us and known to our community is a locked, guaranteed liberty vote on every issue, who will become a state senator. And the state senate's been like tied for a couple of years at 12 and 12. So having an actual like free stater diehard libertarian in that seat could be the difference maker on a lot of big issues.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, I mean, you're predicting a red wave, Derek, and I'm not far behind you in predicting that. I was out door knocking with a candidate a couple weeks ago, and it was the wildest thing because we were only knocking independent, unenrolled voters and like swing voters doors, like people who'd been identified as voting in both primaries, who had no party loyalty whatsoever. And the only issues that got brought up, almost every single house, was inflation. And then we had a couple people who really, really wanted to complain about ESG scores and wokeness infiltrating business and schools in New Hampshire and how that needed to be dealt with. And these were like former Democrat voters.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
well, it's interesting, right? When you have Maggie Hassan campaigning on building a wall and supporting the police, it's like I'm not surprised that the former Democrat voters are like, "Hey, we're concerned about social credit scores. We're concerned about inflation. We're concerned about, like what are our kids being taught in schools." That's great. It should I love how reasonable the average New Hampshire person is.
Well, all three candidates in the U.S. Senate race are running on building a wall. It's just they're disagreeing on where to put it.
Well, okay, yeah.
It's true.
Unbelievable.
So only one of them wants to put it on the Massachusetts border to keep the communists out.
I'm not against that entirely.
I'll tell you, that's a message that resonates with native New Hampshire voters. Build the wall on the Massachusetts border. I don't think there's any group that New Hampshire natives hate more than assholes.
It's not even New Hampshire natives. So, like, my first issue, the first little bit of activism I ever did in New Hampshire when I first moved is I started actually working for a libertarian candidate, helping them petition statewide for ballot access for the presidential ticket for Gary Johnson and Bill Weld. And I spent most of my time doing that petitioning in Nashua outside of Market Basket. And the amount of people who would stop, talk to us, and then refused to sign the petition because it had a Massachusetts governor on it was astounding. And the amount of people who told me they moved to New Hampshire because of Bill Weld's gun control in Massachusetts was astounding, and that they wouldn't support a libertarian ticket just because it had a former Massachusetts governor on it. Like,
well, that'll upset Nick's work. So what are you going to do?
But no, it was absolutely crazy to me. Now, has there been any issues you've encountered, Derek, when you've been out door knocking or talking to people other than like inflation? That seems to be the one big one that your average voter cares about because it's hitting them at the gas pump, the grocery store, the rents are going up. People are worried about paying for their home heating oil this winter, and we're in New England. It gets cold. We like to joke that if the only thing standing between you and liberty is a jacket, then you weren't cut out for it anyways. But the inflation and then the way that the current administration has handled economy is really putting people in a bind where they're worried about how to heat their homes this winter. But I haven't heard anybody, not once, bring up abortion, bring up gun rights, bring up.
Come on, you haven't seen the Maggie Hassan ads?
I've seen the ads, but I haven't heard
she
of
talks
voter.
about.
I haven't heard a voter bring them up once. And now we've been campaigning for similar candidates in different areas. I'm wondering, like, are you hearing anything different where you've been campaigning?
Probably only add supply chains, and then also like another big thing that I've heard like once or twice, maybe 3 times, is repealing the NFA. But I mean, I don't know. I don't know if
that is a very
federal,
New Hampshire issue. Like, that is the National Firearms Act. The NFA is the thing the feds say you can't have a machine gun.
Yeah, that's where machine guns.
Yeah. So, but no, I mean, it's crazy. And Sandra wants to chastise us. She is from Massachusetts, commenting on Facebook, but she's also.
That's not our fault.
Sandra, I'm going to have to stop you there. You're not from Massachusetts because you've been a Free Stater for a whole 9 days now. So we'll say welcome home. Absolutely.
Home.
Get connected. You're no longer from Massachusetts. I don't claim that parentage for myself anymore.
You did, though. You did say you're the only one who's not from here.
Right. I'm not from here, but like I won't say I'm from Massachusetts. I am a Free Stater. I'll say
New
that.
Hampshire.
Yes, I am of New Hampshire. And Sandra, 9 days. Hope you had a great move-in party at least. But you should definitely come out. Oh no, she's from Maine.
There you go.
No, yeah. Mark Warden says the last gasp from the Dems is a weak screech about abortion, though New Hampshire laws are reasonable. Actually, the last gasp about Dems for New Hampshire, and I pointed this out to a few people. I really think the abortion issue is falling deaf on a lot of people in New Hampshire because it's not an issue here, where the overturning of Roe v. Wade was based on the fact that the 14th Amendment didn't actually include a right to privacy. But the New Hampshire Constitution has that right to privacy explicitly in the Constitution on its own. And so the arguments of Roe v. Wade kind of hold up in New Hampshire as they are. And New Hampshire has some of the least restrictive abortion laws of, like, they call it a ban, but like it's less restrictive than anywhere in Europe and most of the United States still, and still has every exemption you could ask for rape, incest, life of the mother, like any exemption on a late-term abortion ban. And I think in like the decade prior to passing it, don't quote me on this, but it was like under 5 abortions that had happened after the 24 weeks in the decade prior to passing that late-term restriction. So it was really a non-issue for people in New Hampshire. And it's not something people are thinking about daily when they're struggling to fill up their gas tanks to get to work.
That's it. It's like the Michael Malice quote where he says something like, it's a lot easier to convince people of some random thing than it is to have that they have more food today on their plate than they did the day before. It's a tangible thing you can see in front of you versus some intangible like idea or concept. I have one. I'm going to throw a wrench right in the middle of the whole thing. So I'm probably the least politically involved out of all of you guys. You all have a role or something that you have done previously or something you're doing now. But there was recently an incident in New Hampshire regarding Bolduc and the Bolduc campaign. So my question is, as somebody who's really just getting involved in New Hampshire politics, like from a serious standpoint in the last couple of years, do you think that an incident like we had with Joa and the Bolduc situation will actually affect a race that is that close, in the sense of the Free State Project and the independent voting bloc, not just libertarians, but the kind of unregistered or independent voting bloc will actually make a change or could have a substantive effect in a state like New Hampshire when you have something like that happen, where you have a third party, someone who represents a third party coming across a candidate and something goes around. Do you think that's something? Yes, me for governor for sure. Me for God, Emperor of New Hampshire. But do you think that that's something that has a tangible effect in the state or in a race as big as the Senate? because I'm just a dude who loves to retweet all this stuff on the internet.
So
it's hilarious to me.
Derek, go ahead first.
Yeah.
Go ahead first.
From the read that I'm getting is that not many people know that it happened. First off, right? They don't even know whether it went one way or the other, where it was like an actual, like, all right, what happened was, Bullock lied about being assaulted, but a lot of the right-wing media is putting it out there that he was assaulted. I don't think anyone even knows that there was an incident, and of the people that do know that, I don't think that they're looking that much into it at all. Like it was just like a thing that happened at the debates. Although once they see the video, because I've had a few of my friends that I sent the video to, they're like, didn't have any opinion on it, and I sent the video and they're like, all right, I'm not voting for Bullock. That's stupid.
It's the Hunter Biden's laptop of New Hampshire.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's
Like
exactly.
It's a smoking gun nobody cares about.
Well,
And-
so yeah, you go ahead next, Justin. Go ahead.
Well, I'm going to say it's a smoking gun nobody cares about. Mark, I think, says it no effect. It will have no effect on the outcome. The only real possible impact is Jeremy as a candidate. Having a third-party candidate in the race is the only real possible impact. I don't actually think there's many votes being swung by it. I don't think anything's being pushed by it, because I think the majority of people in general, not free staters, but just people in general, care about the outcome of an election once they've been told it's close. They want to believe their vote matters, and they're convincing themselves their vote matters. Now, in my personal opinion here, not the opinion of the Free State Project, is that I don't think there is a political solution at the federal level. I don't think any which way. I don't think Don Bolduc, Maggie Hassan, I don't think even if Jeremy Kauffman got elected to the federal Senate, it would make a difference. I don't think, with the way federal politics is engaged and structured, anything can happen to make a difference, to further liberty at that level. I think the only path forward is nullification at the state level, secession at the state level, and increasing liberty at the state level, which is what we see our activists here in New Hampshire doing. And that's why it's important. I think it's crucial that we get people to focus on state level politics and having an impact where it matters in their communities and their home, instead of hoping and praying for a political solution to an apolitical problem. Because the problem with the federal government is not a right versus left, Republican versus Democrat problem. It's an us versus them problem between the establishment and free people. And free people do not have the wherewithal to do what is necessary to engage in the establishment, in the violence of the establishment, and to enforce themselves on other people. So we can't, I don't believe that anything will change people's mind, because if anything happens, what I've seen on Twitter is a bunch of people making rationalizations and justifications. Oh, sure, he lied about that. He didn't really get assaulted, but he's better than Maggie.
Yeah.
Like, it's team mentality, and people want their vote to matter, even though it doesn't at that level.
Okay, so my thoughts are pretty similar to yours, Justin, but a little bit different. I think that you're correct that the federal offices don't matter as much as far as liberty in New Hampshire goes. You know, it's all local laws, it's all local standards and cultural attitudes that really make the biggest difference. And people moving here makes a much bigger difference than like whether Don Bolduc is the senator or Maggie Hassan is the senator. There, I guess, could be some people who are going to look at New Hampshire and be like, well, is it a free state? Well, only if there's Republicans in the federal offices is it a free state. And I think that's just silly. I don't think that's like the like intelligence level that you want from movers. I'm not saying don't move here if that's your biggest issue. But maybe like look into it a little bit more, because honestly, like,
you might be the vote
years,
that changes it, because
well,
it was less than 1,000 votes in the last one.
Also, what I'm going to say is in the past 6 years, you know, we've had Maggie Hassan, I guess, as a senator. And as far as I know, and this isn't an endorsement of Maggie Hassan at all. This is nothing. I don't like Maggie Hassan. I think she's terrible. But like, this has been the biggest 6 years of growth for the Free State Project. So to say that having a blue person in that office would negate the growth of liberty in New Hampshire seems silly. It seems like on its face, you can look at the last 6 years and be like, well, no, that's not necessarily true. The second thing I will say is, having pushed this a little bit, I was there, I filmed the whole incident, having push this around online and talk to a few people in a few different towns in New Hampshire, there's been probably a dozen people that I've talked to personally whose minds were changed. There's probably a bunch of people who I haven't talked to whose minds were changed. How many and to what effect, I don't know. To the people who think that like this issue and, you know, people of different parties, you know, arguing over is going to be the spoiler, I don't think so. I think the existence of a third party is often just a spoiler anyway. And no matter what you do, whether it's the right or the left or whatever, if you're one of these people who is part of that third party, you're going to be blamed for it. And that's just how it goes. And so like with this specific issue, I think like, you know, there's going to be some impact and we won't see until after. And I think nobody wants to talk about it until after because they don't want it to affect the race. And so you'll see more about this story. If I had to guess, there'll be a lot more about the story in the next 3 weeks. But for the last 5 days, they're really like nobody wants to talk about it because it'll make a difference. Even the Liberty Republicans, some of them are like, we don't want to bring this up right now because it kind of doesn't look so good.
Yeah, and that's what I've seen. I've seen the same thing.
I think that's the reality of the situation. So it's unfortunate that that's where it is, but really it's like it is to me reminiscent of the Hunter Biden laptop story, where it's like this thing broke 5 days ago. Nobody wants to talk about it because the risk, I guess, outweighs the reward. But depending on how you feel about the whole party issue or like what the federal implications of the Senate race are on New Hampshire, I don't know. It seems like a lot of
well, races are
about,
always
like, we're going
tight
to ruin
in
New Hampshire
too.
if it's not bold. Like, I think that's wrong.
Right.
I think that's wrong,
Right.
basically.
Well, there's also a lot of wasted vote fallacy. So, like, if people were supporting Bolduc, they see the video, they see what happened. They can't bring themselves to support Hassan because they were the reason they were opposing her. And then they have a wasted vote fallacy. They can't vote for a third party candidate because that's just giving their vote to Hassan because they actually believe that. Because New Hampshire elections are that close where it matters sometimes. Like Hassan's last election was less than 1,000 votes statewide. That's decided that Senate seat. Somebody in one of the group chats today shared a old vote record. It's wildly, almost a hilarious story where a candidate running for state Senate almost lost their primary, and it ended up being a tied vote, like to the vote. It was tied. But the candidate was not able to vote for himself because he ended up being hospitalized with a medical emergency and couldn't make it to the polls that day. And so his own one vote almost cost him the election. And he ended up getting it on the random draw. And they even did a recount, and nope, it was tied. Like New Hampshire elections can be historically that close where a single vote can matter.
Well, that's what I was. One thing, I mean, you know, just being a dude who lurks on the internet, because that's what I do with my time. Seeing something that quickly switched with the Bolduc thing and, you know, the libertarian that met in a parking lot situation was very quickly they switched to saying you guys only run spoiler campaigns. You guys are only looking to be that party to tear somebody else down and do that kind of thing. I know that that's not true. Do you ever get that sentiment, Derek, when you're out knocking doors, or do people ever come back to you? I'm sure Bill and I'm sure Justin, you guys hear that all the time whenever there's a close race in a small state like New Hampshire is a little over 1 million people. So like races do come down to literally one person, you know, again, 1,000 people for a Senate race. In a lot of other states, that's insanely close race. But here, that happens fairly frequently, or within 1,000 or a couple thousand votes. Is that a common sentiment that you've seen in the past, or is that something that's new?
I think it's very common. So like the wasted vote fallacy, the splitting the vote fallacy, the spoiler vote fallacy, I think that's very common, and I think it's irrelevant. And my personal opinion of why I think it's irrelevant is because I don't respect federal politics. I think it's I think it's not a game worth respecting. I do not care who wins the Senate election at the end of the day, because on the issues that matter to me at the local level, there's no difference between the two candidates and how they're going to impact my life. Now at the local level, I also don't respect parties and I don't respect partisan labels. And like, I'll tell anybody, if like you're a diehard libertarian and you want to get elected and have an impact in your district, but you live in Keene, go register as a Democrat and run for office. If you live in Rockingham County, go register as a Republican, run for office. Like if you live in Portsmouth, go register as a Democrat, run for office. If you want to make an impact, recruit for a libertarian movement, and do a messaging campaign, or spoil a race because you really don't like the candidates running and want to send a message, register as a libertarian and go spoil the race. I have no respect for party labels, and I think Free Staters should have no respect for party labels, because I care a lot more about somebody's voting record once they're in office and how they treat liberty than what they did to get into office and how they labeled themselves to get there. So I don't see it as spoiling elections, but yeah, it is a common fallacy where your average voter who thinks their vote matters and wants their vote to matter sees it as a spoiled vote.
Yeah, it's interesting. If we all just voted for the best person for each position, regardless of party, it would be a whole different argument. There would be nobody arguing over Jeremy versus Don versus Maggie or whatever. Everybody knows who the best and worst candidates are to them in that race. Just vote for the best person. It doesn't matter what party. But then that's not what people do, because they assume that
people are stupid. So let's start there.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, it's like if you think that somebody represents you the best, why not vote for that person? If somebody shares your values the most, why not vote for that person? It's this whole thing. Well, they could never win. Well, everybody who thought that voted for them, wouldn't they?
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, you can still have a principled vote, even if you know it's not going to be a winning vote.
Or just admit that your ideas are unpopular and then say, I'm going to go for the unpopular thing out of principle and maybe make it more popular, Well,
here's the question. Do unpopular people deserve representation? Like, do you deserve to be unrepresented because 55% of people disagree with you? Does a minority of the population deserve to go unrepresented in their legislature because they're not popular, because they don't have enough votes to get a majority, so they have to succumb to the will of the majority? Like, is that fair and is that right? And is the democratic system we have just enabling the oppression of a minority? And if you really want to break it down, libertarians, which might amount to 7% of people in this country would identify themselves as libertarian, we are a minority. Libertarians are absolutely a political, an ethical, a moral, and a cultural minority in this country. And by the fact that libertarians can't win races based on the principles and the values of their politics because they're unpopular with people, we're an oppressed minority. And like, one could make the argument that the libertarians are the most oppressed minority because we have so little representation in our government.
Yes.
You've been reading Jeremy Coppin's Twitter feed?
Maybe a little bit of Kanye West.
A little Kanye sprinkled in there. I can hear it. I can see it.
Hashtag ye too. I've been big on Kanye. One thought I had was does like kind of Bill said, the principal vote, or does playing the spoiler affect the Overton window in a state like New Hampshire, where you have the Free State Project and you have a concentration of libertarians, where if you get candidates that make a lot of noise, or you do something like affect an election that makes a lot of people that are here realize like, hey, I hated what this guy had to say, look what these guys did. Or again, for a lot of people on the left that agree with us when it comes to like a lot of the drug laws, qualified immunity, a lot of like the courts and where we align, do you think that does move that Overton window, or that thing that helps us attract movers or make New Hampshire more attractive to libertarians in the future?
Derek?
So, I mean, because most of the time when I'm out on the street helping out, campaigns, it's both.
Did we freeze him?
We froze him. All right.
Well, I mean, Bill, you're a native too. I mean, what do you see with these, to answer Kevin's question?
Yeah, on the question by me again, I missed it.
More of like, do you think that by playing the spoiler, coming in with a third party vote and getting those numbers up there, 2% of the vote, haha, look at you guys, 4%, cool, 10%, same thing, it's all laughable. But as New Hampshire voters are looking at it going, man, look at the moves that the libertarians are making, whether they're gaining within their own party, putting 40 Free Staters, maybe 100 Liberty Republicans or Liberty-leaning folks into the House. do you think that moves the window toward people getting either having someone say, man, not to capitulate to these guys, but having a liberty friendly focus is going to do more for you as a campaign, as a politician in New Hampshire?
Yeah, I think it would. So the idea would be that if you can actually wield any power at all to make these people capitulate, it's worth doing, especially on a federal level. Maybe on a local level, if there's a guy like, say, Mark Warden, who's running for office, and you're like the Libertarian Party candidate, don't run. The guy's great.
Okay.
But if it's not a good candidate, then definitely do it, because what you end up doing is, it seems like the whole debate around this, I don't know that it's necessarily true. I think maybe there's some fallacies built in here, but we're going to take it like it's true. Is like that the only people that aren't Libertarian Party voters that would vote for a Libertarian candidate are Republicans. I don't know that that's true, but if that's true and the Republicans are running a really bad candidate, then yes, of course, if you don't like it, you shouldn't vote for them. And of course that should send a message. And if like that doesn't send a message when that candidate loses, if we're splitting the vote, if we're spoiling it with like 3, 4, 5%, then that isn't like a sign on us. That means that the people who are running bad candidates haven't learned. It's like, don't fundraise for that guy. Don't vote for that guy. Don't throw your support or endorsement behind that guy.
But Bill, this is the most important election of our lifetime.
Every election is the most important of your lifetime, because every one is the only one that's happening right now. So it's like the one that's in the past. What are you going to tell me that's more important than the one today? How? Especially, in the national elections, when the state power nationally just gets bigger and bigger. Every year we're fighting over a bigger and bigger gun. Of course people say it's the most important election ever. It's like if the nuclear warheads get bigger every year and then we have to fight over who controls them, like, yeah, it's a bigger issue. We're fighting over more and more destructive power.
And now the safety's off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, no, this has been a great conversation. I think we hit some really important points. The projections, I do see a red wave happening. That's just my personal projection here in New Hampshire. I think that, again, the federal races are all going to be really close, closer than anyone has comfort for. And we might get one of those favorite New Hampshire pastimes, a recount, in at least one of these big races, where this drama is going to go on for weeks. But it's all over tomorrow, folks. If you're the ones knocking doors, if you're the ones making those phone calls, it's all over tomorrow. And you get at least a few months over until the next time around. Derek, anything you want to leave people with?
How much time do we got?
We don't really have
all right. I'll do this. I'll give 3 pragmatic reasons to vote for Jeremy, and I'll give 3 pragmatic reasons to vote for Don Bolduc. To vote for Don Bolduc would be punishing the incumbent, which strikes fear in the heart of every politician. No one wants to lose their job, so
in which case you would also have to vote for Tom Sherman and whoever else.
Here's the thing. I'll refute that one. I'll refute that one. Punishing an incumbent like Maggie Hassan isn't voting her out of office. She is taking so much money from lobbyists. She has 5 board seats and 3 lobbying jobs and her law firm waiting for the day she's voted out. Her salary will triple overnight.
We probably shouldn't argue all the points, so we should probably let him make all the points.
Number 2, you talk to a lot of movers, or prospective movers. A lot of people don't really understand the internal politics of New Hampshire. And so having all of our federal delegation be Democrats is sometimes a tough sell. So that's another point, right? And then I'd probably say the third point would be a lot of progressives are probably holding on to that Senate seat. And so Maggie Hassan going bye-bye might make them want to move someplace else. But then there's also pragmatic reasons to vote for Jeremy. So voting for Jeremy, right, we talked about kind of letting, he's got the 6 points. Voting for Jeremy might let the Republican establishment know that you don't automatically have the Libertarian vote, and that you might actually have to run candidates that would appeal to a Libertarian vote in order to win, which then helps us move the Overton window. Number 2 would be giving us the ballot access for 2024, which makes it a lot easier on the rest of us, especially if we want to run, I don't know, maybe a presidential candidate like Spike Cohen or Dave Smith or something like that in 2024. And then the other thing is getting that major party status, which gives us fusion candidates. So if we've got Liberty reps who want to be Republicans and Libertarians, that allows the LP to also throw their weight and resources and money and donors, whatever, towards Liberty reps or candidates in New Hampshire. So that like helps with the local government as well, you know, getting us that major party status. So yeah, but Jeremy is the only pragmatic and principled vote. So just think of that.
All right. Well, again, everyone, just a reminder, the Free State Project is a nonprofit, and all of these views and opinions expressed are ours as the hosts and the guests alone, and don't reflect the views of the organization, though they may reflect the views of the community. But you should move and make your voice part of that community. If you want to learn more about the Free State Project, go to fsp.org. That's the website you can learn all about what the great things the Free State Project is doing here in New Hampshire and movers are doing on a daily basis. If you're hesitant about moving or timid about doing it, plan a visit. This is a great time to come. Liberty Forum's coming up this winter. If you haven't been, if you're an academic in the weeds type of a nerd libertarian who wants to get all into the legislative process, then Liberty Forum is absolutely the place to be. You can check that out. I got to get a card up here, but that's Liberty new nhlibertyforum.com. I don't know if they have dates or anything up there yet, but it's coming and it's going to be a perfect time to visit. And so go to fsp.org/visit New Hampshire to get in touch with Chris, and she can help you plan your visit, a customized, tailored visit to meet your neighbors. And once you're here, if you're a new Free Stater, like we had at least one in the chat, check out the calendar, fsp.org/calendar, for the most jam-packed Liberty events calendar in the world. I know election season is wrapping up. It's over tomorrow, but that doesn't mean that the community just goes into hibernation. We have meetups, we have activism events. Bill review season is starting for the New Hampshire Liberty Alliance, and there's active lobbying efforts throughout the legislative year. Everything's on that calendar. How you can get in touch, how you can get involved, and how you can come and make yourself part of the community. And if you want to support what the Free State Project is doing financially, fsp.org/give, where you can set up a one-time or a recurring contribution. You can get in touch with people if you want to make a major gift. And remember, 501c3 charitable nonprofit, your donation is tax deductible, so you decide where it goes instead of Uncle Sam. And that's the best selling point there. So until next time, and Kevin, Bill, anything you want to leave people on?
Don't forget to hit the like button.
Hit the subscribe button.
That's true. Smash that like button. Shout out to the LFOD Discord server for my Sam Tripoli cameo that they got for me. It's a hilarious big meme energy, and I appreciate it. And join the Discord, whatever the thing is, /FSP and LFOD. There's two, so go crazy. Bring your memes.
And until next time, everybody, thank you for tuning in. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave some comments, let us know what you thought. And until next time, be free.
Yeah. I don't believe in destiny, I just do what's best for me. Don't listen to my enemies, they're just full of jealousy. Yeah, this legacy, you gon' see what's left of me. You gon' see success in me, you ain't seen the rest of me. I just wanna be the best at what I know, better than the rest, just watch me grow. Put me to the test and watch me go. This is my quest, I'ma make it known. They call me obsessive, oh I know. Call me selective with my notes, call me aggressive with my flow. Call me offensive even though Joey ain't